So we're good to go. Thanks everyone for being here and not being scared of that enterprise thing over there. Just in case I wore my best enterprise shirt. So I know I can see now that I didn't need it. So okay, let's just jump into it. Maybe from my accent you can tell I'm not from Italy. I'm a front-end engineer. I work at Library, but not here, either in Milano or in Puglia, where we have offices, but in Madrid, where it's almost as nice as here. So I got invited by my friends at Library here in Italy, and I was very happy to come over for a week and then just have some time to be here with you. And I wanted to share a story that happened on Monday morning while we were waiting on the airport, and it just made me think about the rest of the week a little bit. So it was early morning on a Monday morning. We were already waiting to board the plane, and then the speaker just announced that due to technical reasons, the flight was going to be delayed. And I don't know about you, but if you're about to jump into a small tin can that's going to fly over the sea, 2,000 kilometers to another country, technical reasons is not the thing you want to hear, right? Something else, free drinks maybe, but technical reasons definitely not. So it wasn't a good start. Luckily, I was with Angela from finance, which she was always also flying, and she said that was normal. It happens every time on this flight. I said, okay, that's fine. Things happen, right? Turns out 30 minutes later, we were still waiting. We didn't know what was going on. So we just decided, okay, let's see if we can figure out why are we still here. And then we just started walking around asking, and I don't know if you can guess, but I'll just tell you right away. This is what we saw. I don't know if you can tell by the picture, but there's a guy actually changing the tires of the plane. I don't know, has ever happened this to anyone else? Okay, so not only there's one guy, there's other guys just watching, and that's how it works in Spain. So, but so the plane it had tires, but they didn't work, so they had to change it. And also, I don't know about you, but I've had to change tires on my car, and it was the worst experience I ever remember. It was 4 of us, 4 engineers, trying to change one flat tire. It took us 40 minutes. We ended up all sweating and dirty, and actually scared to death to drive that thing that we just put together. I mean, there's no way this works, right? But that guy alone, just changed 3 tires on a plane, and then confidently just pushed 200 people in there to fly over the sea. So, okay, that got me thinking that there has to be something. So they could actually do that in under an hour. So I didn't say before, it was just an hour delay, and we were on the air already with not just 1, but 3 new tires. So unbelievable. So when I'm talking about enterprise throughout the talk today, I don't want you to think about this type of enterprise, right? This type of stock photo, people in suits just with weird smiles. We all know what I'm saying, right? Enterprise means something else when we're talking about software. And unfortunately, I'm not talking about this enterprise either, but I'd love to. If you want to, just come find me. When we talk about enterprise, every time we mention enterprise, we mean software that works, that stays for a long time and can be fixed. It has quick response times, it's reliable, and it's performant, right? So that's the message we want to get out there. So just to be a little bit more concrete, what is enterprise software? And no need to take guesses here, because Wikipedia gets us covered every time nowadays. So enterprise software is just software, of course, that just targets enterprises, companies, rather than individual users. You're used to do things for you that you need, right? And then you have software that helps you do that. Well, there's software that also helps enterprises do the things they need. And that, down the line, of course, means people doing something. An enterprise is not, I don't know, like an entity that works with software and does things. There's people in there. So an enterprise needs to get their employees together, to talk to each other, to communicate, also to have channels with other companies. And that software is what we call enterprise software. If that's not enough, then there's the other side or the other type of definition where it just means that it's complicated enough that you get paid to fix it because no one else understands. And it's kind of true, I guess. Not really, but we've all joked about this, or at least I have. Right? Having you told a coworker, if I did my job right, then I would be out of a job because there would be nothing else to do or nothing else to fix. Well, that's just, of course, joking, because the truth is that enterprise, it's actually complicated. And it's complicated not because the goal is to make it complicated. It's not because we want it to be hard and make a lot of money out of it. It's just because it happens. And as a company grows, or if everything goes well, that's what you expect from your company, to be able to grow, right? And to get more money and more people and employ more persons and then just put all your work out there. So things just become naturally more complicated. It's just the natural evolution of events. And not only that, not only you have a very complex entity or a very complex enterprise with a lot of relations, but then you have similarly complex entities out there, other enterprises, other companies that you have to work with them, right? And then it's like two elephants or two stars just clashing into each other. So how do you deal with that, right? And the software is somehow that contract that makes sure that those two elephants don't kill each other, right? And then they are on good terms and then they can coexist and then they work together. So for them to work in that way, they have to reach into some kind of agreements that work for a long period of time. And another way that enterprise is complex and it's more subtle is that change has a huge impact on enterprise, small changes. So a small change in an enterprise software or just an enterprise in general usually causes a cascading effect all the way. And when I say cascading here, it's not cascading nice as in CSS, right? Like, I love my cascading here and how can I do awesome things? This is cascading bad as in Jurassic Park, where you get raptors killing your park visitors, right? Because a small thing change and then all the way down is just chaos all the time. So imagine if you have an enterprise or a company where you just decide, because you're in charge of the front end, and it's a reasonable thing to do, that you want to change frameworks. You want to switch to a different library. Common enough, because there's new things every day that you want to use. So now you go and then you change it. What happens next? Your team works on that, and then they change it, and that's easy. Then the next thing you know is there are many other teams from engineering, from development, that need to actually also update. So now you have different layers. And then when those teams are done, then you have QA coming in and technical support trying to understand what happened, what's different now, how do I work with this? And then you have training, and then you have sales engineering that need to also adapt. And then you move to outside your own company, and then you have other companies that need to do the same because they used to work with you. You have a community of developers, and from one day to the other, you just change things. So how do they react to that? Change is complex when we're in the enterprise. I don't know if from now, hopefully you have a good overview or slightly better overview of why enterprise is complicated, but that doesn't answer the question of why would you do that? I mean, why would you, because we're here to talk about why would you build your own library, right? Why wouldn't you pick one that's already there? And nothing I told you so far actually answers this question, of course. So, and the truth is, these days there are many enterprise-grade frameworks and libraries out there, and you can build enterprise software with those, with Angular and React being the most used nowadays, and they are backed by very capable enterprises, very capable engineers that know what they're doing and that know this space very well. So there's nothing wrong with picking those, as long as that's the problem you have to solve. But there might be other things, so I'll try to give some more context about that. And I wanted to just tell you a bit of our journey into JavaScript and how we used it over time. But before, and honestly, this is true, that it just showed on my timeline today, just right after the talk, and I had to go up and just add it. So the question is, why would you go into enterprise software? Where's the fun in that? Right? He was asking himself, does anyone wake up in the morning and say, oh, I know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'll have fun building enterprise software. It doesn't work like that, right? It usually starts small. So our company was born in 2004 in LA, in Los Angeles, and it was not in a basement, actually. It was in a church. Just funny anecdote. So 2004, it was not much going on front end, but there was this thing called Portal where you could drag and drop features and boxes, and each user could actually put together their own page. So that was nice. And our founder built that. With time, it grew. It just grew. People started asking for that software. And then we moved to jQuery because this is 2008, so it's way back there. And jQuery was good at the moment, and it allowed us to do things that we never dreamed of, and to support all the browsers, the old ones and the new ones that were out there. So we kept growing. 2 years later, we had huge code base, or bigger code base, more users, and the features were growing more complicated. So what do you do next? Well, jQuery does no longer fit our needs, so we need to find something else. And in this case, we picked YUI. YUI was a library. I don't know. Does anyone know YUI? Or has? Okay, we can talk about it later if you want, or for those who went through this. So YUI was a very nice library at the moment, developed at Yahoo by people like Douglas Crockford. You may know him from other books. So it was backed by a good company. It seemed to have a long time ahead of them, and they had a lot of nice features that we are getting today natively, like modules, module loading, dependencies, widgets, plugins. There was the whole pack, right? So good enough. We just moved there, redid all of our front end, and then we had a new working front end for our enterprise. Surprise! 2014, Yahoo, a big company, just decides this is not worth it anymore. So the question I'm going to make to you is, what do you do next? So all your code is based on something that no longer works, that you picked 2 years ago or 3 years ago and no longer works. So you go with, this is 2015, React was 0.12, I think, Angular 1.4. So just to give you some context. So who would write their own library? No one? One? Who would just use another one? I guess everyone. Come on, don't be shy. Okay, so sorry to disappoint you. We built our own. And then along the line, other things happened. We implemented new features. We added, and now we're releasing our own component library as well. Which, if I were to make the same question, I guess I'll get the same answer. So let's try to put this problem in a different light. Remember, we're in 2008. We have small code base, very few users, right? And then we can change to jQuery. No big deal. It's a no-brainer. Then 2 years from there, the code base is actually growing, but it's at the point that it makes sense to change before it gets too complicated, right? We are growing on users, but they won't be too mad about it. So we just change. Now we move some years, 2014, 2016. What do we do now, right? And remember this change impact. How every time we change something, it just caused not just our company, but all the companies, all the customers, all of our developers to relearn something and do things in a different way. And so now we have a huge code base, huge, that it will take us years to change. And we have tons of users, tons of developers, tons of partners. So what change can we do there? Not only thinking about that, but what can happen 2 years from now? Can we absorb another hit like that for our company, for our ecosystem? Can we do that to other people that work with us? So with this in mind, would anyone change their minds? You would all still pick an existing library? Okay, let me try again. Now you have different constraints, right? It's not only that you're going to impact others in a huge way, that you may just lose them as a customer. So that's real risk you have there. But also, there's things you can change, like your stack. We are on a Java stack, on a backend stack, and we are telling to our customers that we're going to maintain whatever we give them for 8 years. 4 in the best scenario when they move, or 8 in extended ones. So how do you do that? And how do you keep your company consistent so that every piece out there knows what you're doing and doesn't get lost and you don't have to spend the time over and over in retraining them. And not only that, remember I was waiting for a plane, right? I was just waiting there. So every second counted for me to get here, because me not doing that, it was going to impact people in mysterious ways. Like maybe I didn't make it to the conference, so then this slot would be open, and then the organizers couldn't find someone, and then you would be asking for a refund because it was a conference without speakers, right? So if you have an application built on an existing library like React or Angular, and there's a bug because software has bugs, and that's just no matter who writes them. So if you find an issue, imagine on the plane guy just saying, yeah, someone will bring us another wheel, maybe, but their release cycle or their tire cycle is just 2 days. So Monday or Wednesday from now, you'll be able to fly because we have a new release coming. How would that sound? I mean, sure, you can get away with it, but would you be happy with it? You probably won't even fly. So just keep that in mind. Did I change anyone's mind now? Okay, maybe some. Was worth it then. Okay, so real quick, we actually made a decision to actually build our own based on all these context I just tried to give you. And there's just some hints here of things that we've learned along the way that I wanted you to take away. So what we built in the end was these 3 pieces. Here, Lexicon is just more design language, so we can tell all of our developers how to build things, or what are the patterns, the interactions that they need to actually use when designing an application. So that's more on the design level, and then on the code level, on the front-end side, we will Metal.js as our base library to reuse the functions, the methods we usually needed, the utilities, and some rendering layer which we needed to adapt to our specific constraints. And finally, Clay, which is just the web implementation of Lexicon, so how you actually get pieces out and then build your applications based on Metal.js. So this is what we built. And related to the constraints thing is, before anything, you need to understand. I mean, if you need to go down this path, you need to understand your problem. You need to identify your needs, because the frameworks out there, they have nice features, they're very cool, but do they actually solve your needs? So back at the time, I think Meteor was really nice, and it had real-time capabilities. So would you pick that because they had real-time capabilities? Well, if it's not your problem, then probably it's not the right choice. Even if it does that, you don't need it. So it's just going to add extra complexity. So understand your needs is the first step to understanding what you need to build, and if you have to build it or if you need it. So in our case, we had to do server-side rendering. That was a must. That was something we had and we couldn't lose. And we had a Java stack. So how do you move to a JavaScript framework when you are actually running on a Java stack? And you can do server-side rendering unless you actually run it from Java. So sometimes it's not so easy. Down the line, we also realize, and this is maybe one of the key aspects that we can get away from, is that you have to be aware of premature abstractions. It's very hard once you actually build something, and sure, if it quacks, it's a duck, right? That we've always heard that, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it just seemed like a duck, but it was something else. But you run to just put something on top, and now 2 years from there, it's very hard for you to change. So I'm just saying here, sometimes copy pasting is not such a bad solution. And this is a trend that's starting to be out there. Just start understand your problem before you try to abstract and create whole complex hierarchies or ideas around this. Invest on it. If you need to build something, you need to have the people and the resources and the time to do that. If your company is not willing to do that, just don't. I mean, that's the first way, because you'll just be fighting an uphill battle there, and there's nothing worse than that. This is probably the most complicated one. Resist the hype. It's very easy to just go out there, see all the shiny new things, and want to get on board, right? And this doesn't mean that you have to just close yourself, shut yourself in somewhere else. It just means that you need to understand what those other things, those new things are solving, and understand the use cases and also the trade-offs that you would need to do to adopt them, because then you can actually reevaluate your decisions, and you can even adapt or include some of these new features into your own solution. So always be learning new things and just reevaluating based on your own experience. If ever you have to build something, document it. I think there's nothing more important than this. It's even more important than building new features. And I think both Google with Angular project and with Material and Polymer, Facebook with React are doing awesome job at this. Document your patterns, your architecture, your components. If you have to migrate things, say how to, document tutorials, give snippets, code pens. There's never enough documentation out there. So keep this in mind because it's a huge time investment. And lastly, here's part of the code I will show because Marco asked for it. So don't forget about the standards. It's important when you're building something to always rely on the basics and on the standards of the technology or the platform you're building for. And before was a very nice talk about native modules in the browser and how they're not yet ready, right? If you are here, it's not something you can use now, but it might be something that you can use down the line. So just keep an eye on that and start building very simple things that people can start using. For example, this is how you would use our library, our Clay library. Like someone, a newcomer, can just use it. And this actually, we've seen that this is necessary for people from marketing, sales. They just want maybe to build a static site. So how can you tell a guy that just wants to put 2 cards in a page and a banner, something like that, that he needs to get a Webpack config and then start, I don't know, an Express server and then transpile everything just to get a site running? It's crazy. So don't forget that there's other uses out there other than just your team. So start simple, start with the basics, and then start moving on layers. So you can just use HTML here. So with just copy pasting this, you get alerts. So if you're just building a static site, you're done, you're good to go, and then you're happy, right? Or your developer is happy. Of course, this is not going to be enough for everyone. You don't want people to just write HTML all the time. So just put it into nice templates. This is the template language we use, which is Closure templates, which renders both on the server and on the client. This is one of the examples of why we had to pick our own thing, because with this we can render on Java, but we can also compile templates for JavaScript. Add JavaScript then on top. And lastly, just go back to the basics again. This is web components, so this is the trend. And a year ago we already decided, and not many libraries were doing this, but we saw that we needed to get a way to go back to the standards so that our components could be interoperable into different frameworks. So every component just is registered as a web component, which is what every component library out there is doing now, right? And then now you have no longer the problem of how to interact with React or Angular, because those are native, those are basic, and those are standard. So you're back to the beginning, and then everyone can use your components. So that's all I have for today. I hope hope you enjoyed it. And if you have time or you have questions, I'll be around. We have a booth right there, so just feel free to ping me anytime. Thank you.